Have you ever noticed how the tech world um, seems to be split into two completely different realities?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, on one side, you have the companies just shouting from the rooftops about every new buzzword, fighting for your attention with these flashy consumer gadgets.
The ones that usually end up shoved in a junk drawer after maybe 6 months.
Exactly. We all have that drawer.
Yeah, we really do.
But then on the other side, you have these companies that are just quietly, methodically building the actual, invisible infrastructure of the future.
Right. They're laying down the plumbing, basically. The stuff that makes all that flashy consumer tech actually function out in the real world.
Yes, exactly. And today, we are going deep on a company that sits squarely in that foundational layer.
Which is always where the real long-term plays happen.
Right. So we're looking at a pretty fascinating stack of press materials from an AI platform company called Calix. That's ticker symbol CALX on the New York Stock Exchange.
And the timing on this is really specific, right?
Right. It is. The reason we are doing this deep dive right now is that we are looking at a highly orchestrated, highly pivotal 24-hour window for this company.
I love looking at these tight timelines. You get to see the raw mechanics of, well, how a company's leadership really wants to position their whole narrative to the broader market.
Especially when they're dealing with those massive institutional investors, the
Yeah.
ones who basically hold the keys to their valuation.
Exactly. It's high stakes.
Okay, let's unpack this because this isn't just some standard dry financial update. When you read through these materials, it's actually a blueprint.
A blueprint for what, specifically?
Well, for how artificial intelligence is being integrated into the literal bedrock of our local communities, like our cities and our homes.
Oh, wow. Right.
Yeah, and to really grasp what they're attempting here, we have to look at how they've sequenced this whole announcement.
Right, the 24-hour window you mentioned.
Exactly. So yesterday, April 21st, Calix released their first quarter 2026 unaudited financial results.
And they did that via a letter to stockholders, right?
Right. Followed by a 2 p.m. Pacific conference call with their CEO, Michael Weening, and their CFO, Corey Sindler.
Which is, a pretty standard cadence for quarterly
Okay.
earnings, getting the numbers out, letting the analysts just digest that immediate financial reality.
Sure, standard stuff. But they paired that with a massive secondary event.
Right, the in-person event.
Yeah, because this morning, today, April 22nd, they are hosting Investor Day 2026 right on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
That is a major flex.
It really is. And they are shifting gears entirely today to talk about long-term strategic direction, the product roadmap for their Calix One platform, and their capital allocation philosophy.
What's fascinating here is how deliberate that sequencing is. Because if you think about the psychology of market communications.
Right, like how investors actually listen.
Exactly. If a leadership team tries to pitch this grand multi-year vision while the market is still stressing out about, say, a slight miss on quarterly revenue.
Oh, they won't hear a word of the pitch.
Not a single word. They'll just hijack the entire Q&A to interrogate the short-term data.
Like, why did operating cash flow dip 2% last Tuesday?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So by clearing the deck yesterday with the stockholder letter, Calix effectively isolates the past performance.
I see. It's almost like it's like releasing this gritty documentary about how you manage the budget of a film on a Tuesday,
Okay, I like this analogy.
and then hosting the massive, glamorous red carpet premiere for the actual blockbuster on Wednesday.
Yeah. You get the financial housekeeping out of the way, so Wednesday can be entirely about the future.
And to me, this back-to-back scheduling just projects massive confidence. You don't pitch a 10-year capital allocation philosophy if Wall Street is breathing down your neck about last quarter's margins.
No, you definitely don't. They establish the baseline of where they are financially so that today at the NYSE, they can control the narrative completely.
Right.
They're signaling to the market, like, our foundation is solid enough that we don't need to dwell on the last 90 days. We need you to look at how we're deploying capital for the next decade.
But, to pull off a 10-year pitch on the floor of the stock exchange, you can't just talk spreadsheets.
No, you need a serious technological engine to back that up.
And that brings us to the tech itself, because the document explicitly calls Calix an AI platform company.
Right. And the centerpiece of this entire narrative is their AI native platform, the one they call Calix One.
Yeah, Calix One. And their stated goal here is to enable service providers to, quote, transform their operations and accelerate the delivery of differentiated subscriber experiences.
Which is quite a mouthful.
It is. And
Yeah.
honestly, I have to push back hard on some of this phrasing because this is where my corporate jargon alarm just starts blaring.
Fair enough. What part specifically?
Well, the press release says that through this platform, service providers can securely and privately activate agentic AI alongside their human teams.
Ah, yes. Agentic AI.
Let's talk about that term. Because frankly, we've had automated triggers in telecommunications for, what, a decade?
Oh, easily. Probably longer for basic stuff.
Right. If my router drops its connection, the network automatically sends a reset signal.
Sure.
So why are we slapping the AI label on what sounds like a glorified if-then statement?
Right.
Like, what does it actually mean to have an AI with agency?
It is a vital distinction to make because you're right, the line between basic automation and artificial intelligence gets blurred constantly in marketing materials.
It's exhausting, honestly.
It really is. But an automated if-then trigger is entirely reactive, and it's rigid.
Because it relies on a human to set it up.
Exactly. It relies on a human programmer to anticipate a specific failure and write a specific script to fix it. If the failure falls outside those narrow parameters,
The system breaks.
the system completely breaks. That is not agency.
Okay, so what changes when you introduce actual agency into the workflow?
Basically, autonomy and contextual reasoning.
Hmm.
An agentic AI doesn't just sit there waiting for a pre-programmed threshold to be crossed. Right.
It's an active participant that can reason through completely novel situations.
And the source material specifies that this AI works alongside human teams, right? To acquire new subscribers, grow revenue, build loyalty.
Yeah.
But walk me through what that actually looks like mechanically. Like, give me a real-world scenario.
Okay, let's say a local broadband provider is monitoring a neighborhood network.
Okay.
An automated system might just send a generic alert when bandwidth hits, say, 99% capacity.
Just a flashing red light on a dashboard somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But an agentic AI goes several steps further.
Uh.
It might autonomously notice a historical pattern, like a specific household's latency spikes every Tuesday evening.
Oh, because that's when everyone's home.
Right, correlating with two kids logging into cloud gaming servers while a smart TV in the living room streams 4K video.
Wow. Okay.
So the AI reasons that this customer is on the verge of churning because their experience is degrading every week.
You're getting frustrated. Exactly. It then independently tests virtual routing solutions, realizes a hardware upgrade is actually necessary, and drafts a hyper-personalized, context-aware upgrade offer.
And then it presumably flags that offer for a human representative to review and actually send.
Which is exactly what the phrasing alongside their human teams means.
It's doing the heavy analytical lifting.
Yes. And the strategic reasoning. It's teeing up the human to execute the actual relationship-building part of the job.
Okay, well, that makes the distinction incredibly clear. It's not just executing a command. It's identifying a complex problem and formulating a strategic response.
Right. It's acting like an agent.
But that brings us to the securely and privately part of that quote.
The most important part, really.
Yeah, because they lead with privacy before they even mention the AI. And I have to assume that's because of the sheer creepiness factor involved here.
Oh, the creepiness factor is massive if this isn't handled right.
Because the service providers buying this platform are the ISPs for our homes and our cities. They know when my house wakes up based on my smart thermostat pinging the network.
They know when your kids get home from school based on their phones connecting to the Wi-Fi.
Exactly. The depth of behavioral data flowing through a service provider's network is staggering.
And if an enterprise is going to deploy an autonomous, reasoning intelligence into the absolute heart of that data ecosystem.
The potential for a catastrophic privacy breach is immense.
Immense. If an AI agent accidentally hallucinates and leaks the network habits of a local business or a private residence,
That service provider is finished. Done.
completely done. So security isn't just a nice feature to list on a brochure.
It's the literal barrier to entry. If the market doesn't believe the AI is securely ring-fenced, the agency of the AI doesn't even matter.
Because no service provider will ever risk turning it on.
So by putting securely and privately right next to agentic AI, Calix is kind of addressing the absolute biggest friction point of enterprise AI adoption before the question is even asked.
They are assuring Wall Street that they have solved the security prerequisite, which frees up the investors to focus on the revenue-generating potential.
Right. But, building an AI that can securely reason through human behavioral data across an entire city's infrastructure.
It's not easy.
No, that isn't something a couple of software engineers can whip up in a weekend hackathon.
Not at all.
And that brings us to the scale of what is actually being presented today. The source notes that the Calix One platform has evolved over 15 years, with an investment of more than $2 billion.
Yeah, those numbers completely reframe the entire narrative.
Seriously. Let's contextualize 15 years. If we look back from 2026, they started this evolution around, what, 2011?
Yep, 2011.
The tech landscape in 2011 was practically the Stone Age.
I mean, we were barely getting used to smartphones being a normal thing.
Exactly. To me, this is like finding out a company started planting a massive, highly specialized apple orchard 15 years ago.
While everyone else in the industry was just reading white papers about what an apple was.
Yes. And now suddenly, there's this global land rush for artificial intelligence. And this company happens to own a fully mature, deeply rooted ecosystem.
An ecosystem that is currently leveraged by more than 1,200 customers
Right.
across residential, business, municipal, and MDU markets.
MDU meaning multi-dwelling units, right, like apartment buildings.
Correct. And this is where I think the real competitive advantage lies.
How so?
Well, when you are dealing with MDUs, these massive apartment complexes and high-rises or sprawling municipal city networks, you aren't just plugging a standard router into a wall.
Oh, I can only imagine.
The physics of the infrastructure are just chaotic. You
Yeah.
have concrete and steel interference. You have overlapping signals from 300 competing Wi-Fi network in the exact same building.
Oh, man. Just constant interference.
Plus, localized power surges, weather interference. It is an absolute nightmare of physical variables.
Wow.
And that is exactly why the 15-year timeline is their greatest asset. Because artificial intelligence is fundamentally constrained by the quality and the historical depth of the data it is trained on.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, so if a hotshot AI startup in Silicon Valley decides today that they want a piece of the service provider market,
They can't just write a sleeker algorithm to beat Calix.
no, they can't. A sleeker algorithm in a sterile lab environment is basically useless when it hits the messy reality of a municipal network.
Right, because it hasn't seen the mess yet.
Exactly. A new startup doesn't have the hard-won edge case data of how a specific brand of smart meter interacts with an aging router during a brownout in a thunderstorm.
But the Calix One platform does.
Yes. It has 15 years of accumulated experience learning how to navigate those highly specific, real-world nightmares across 1,200 different customers.
So that $2 billion they mentioned isn't just research and development capital.
No, it is accumulated tuition.
Accumulated tuition. I like that.
They paid that money over a decade and a half to learn from real-world physical chaos. You simply cannot buy a 15-year historical perspective. You have to live it.
So the moat isn't just the software architecture. The moat is time itself.
Precisely.
But, time creates its own unique vulnerabilities in the tech sector.
Oh, definitely.
Because you can't maintain a massive legacy platform if the engineers who actually understand its architecture keep walking out the door.
Which is a huge problem in tech right now.
Which brings us to the final major pillar of their press release. And honestly, the part that initially seemed totally out of place to me.
You're referring to the corporate culture metrics.
Yes. So we've got this deeply technical, highly strategic financial document designed for Wall Street analysts, right?
Right.
We are talking about 10-year capital allocation, $2 billion moats, agentic AI securely navigating municipal networks.
Very serious financial topics.
And then abruptly, there is this massive section highlighting their people-first culture.
Yeah, stands out.
They point out that they have won 81 Culture and Innovation Awards since 2025 alone. And they specifically name-drop being added to Fortune's 100 Best Companies to Work For in 2026.
It does read like a jarring shift in tone, especially if you look at it strictly through a traditional financial lens.
Right. I initially read it and thought, what is the strategic value here?
It feels like fluff at first glance.
Yeah, it felt like the delicious irony of a company whose whole pitch is about automating and accelerating operations.
Bragging about human HR metrics.
Yes, it's like a robotics company spending the end of their investor pitch boasting about how they have the most comfortable employee break room.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the press release actually gives us the exact causal link.
Okay, what's the link?
It states, quote, Calix innovation cycles are underpinned by a strong financial balance sheet and a people-first culture.
So they are explicitly telling investors that the culture is the foundation of the technology.
Think about the economics of the tech talent war right now.
It's vicious.
It is. The engineers who actually know how to build and maintain secure, agentic AI, they can practically write their own ticket anywhere in the world.
The compensation packages are just
And
astronomical.
if those top-tier engineers leave, they take the institutional memory with them.
Ah. So you can't just hire a new developer off the street.
No, you can't expect them to immediately understand the intricacies of a 15-year-old, $2 billion code base that runs municipal networks.
You take years just to onboard them properly.
Exactly. The loss of institutional memory is fatal to long-term innovation cycles.
So how does a company retain that talent when competitors are throwing massive amounts of money at them?
You have to build a workplace where the best minds genuinely want to stay.
Which means those 81 culture awards and the Fortune 100 ranking aren't just about, like, ping pong tables and free lunches.
Not at all. It's risk mitigation.
Wow.
It is a hard, competitive financial advantage. When Calix presents those metrics at the New York Stock Exchange today, they are sending a very specific message to institutional investors.
They are saying our $2 billion moat is secure.
Yes, because the human architects of that moat are not going to jump ship to a competitor. We have objectively proven that we retain talent better than the rest of the industry.
That completely changes how you read the entire document.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Every single element is interlocked. The back-to-back timeline isolates the financial past to clear the deck for the long-term vision.
Right.
The vision requires the autonomous capabilities of agentic AI. The AI requires the massive data advantage of a 15-year moat.
And that 15-year moat requires a bulletproof human culture to sustain the institutional memory. It is a masterclass in cohesive corporate narrative. They are not pitching a product. They are pitching a self-sustaining ecosystem.
And that is exactly why this matters to you, the listener.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's easy to look at a B2B corporate deep dive like this and think, I don't run a municipality. I don't manage a multi-dwelling unit. Why should I care about what happens at Calix's Investor Day?
But you really should.
You should care because companies like Calix are the invisible engines powering the digital reality you live in every single day.
Because the infrastructure that connects your home to the world is undergoing a fundamental rewiring right now.
Yeah.
It is shifting from static, dumb pipes into intelligent, proactive networks that actively analyze your behavior to optimize your experience.
Exactly. The speed at which that shift happens in your specific community and the security of the data flowing out of your house is heavily dependent on the strategic and financial frameworks being hammered out on Wall Street today.
It all eventually trickles down to the router sitting in your living room.
The macro strategy always dictates the micro experience.
100%.
Which leaves me with a final thought I want to throw out to you to mull over today.
Let's hear it.
We spent this time breaking down how Calix is securely activating this agentic AI to work autonomously alongside human teams.
Right, anticipating network failures and personalizing upgrades.
Doing it before the customer even realizes there's a problem. But if this platform works as flawlessly as they are pitching it at the NYSE today,
What happens to our traditional concept of customer service?
exactly. It fundamentally rewrites the relationship between the consumer and the provider.
It really does.
Because if the infrastructure becomes truly proactive, in the very near future, when you receive an incredibly thoughtful, personalized, differentiated experience from your local service provider,
Will you even know who you're dealing with?
right, will you even be able to tell if that interaction was handled by a highly trained human being or an incredibly sophisticated, securely activated AI agent operating invisibly in the background?
That's a wild thought.
The plumbing of our world is getting smarter by the minute, and the line between the human touch and the machine is getting much, much harder to see.